So his pain was that he that was already, the Agho Obaseki's pain was that he was already giving orders during the British colonial rule. He was already giving orders. So if Agho Obaseki now becomes the Oba, he will not be taking orders from the small boy. I will not take order from him. He's supposed to be taking order from me. Why me yeah, I tell you get go so do ya go ya go. Do worry have no ria. E mo tie e be tie. Begin to take orders from Oga, who was the rightful candidate for the throne. Power was beginning. This is what Igbafe acknowledged. Power was beginning to corrupt Obaseki and to tempt him to want to break Benin tradition. Look at what Igbafe wrote. He said power was beginning to corrupt Obaseki and to tempt him to want to break Benin traditions. James Swart, still anxious to do what he could do for his loyal servant, refused even at this stage to reach a decision, even when it was clear that Agho Obaseki James Swart James Swart name needs to leave Benin land. The two contestants for the throne. Look at it, oh. The two contestants. And it was see me here. The throne. The two contestants of it. The two contestants for the throne, Crown Prince Agho Obaseki and the Obaseki. The host of the meeting were in attendance. So I do see me. Don't also forget, I will also read that a letter that Crown Prince Agho Obaseki wrote to King George. King George no la no bunyeri that Obaseki and me and throne. We are all going to read that from Igba's work. Yes, he wrote. So let's start. Okay. Yeah, I want to make it. Question number 2. Review of Prince Osuyi allegation of Agho Obaseki good relationship with and his good relationship with the royal house. Okay. Now let's talk about Prince Osuyi. Prince Osuyi, knowing a great grandchild of Obavon is a scallywag. When a daughter is scallywag, is a scallywag, and hungry, pathetic fellow. Is an hungry, pathetic fellow. Again, no that we institute to be a kegwa. Oh, you for me. Oh, you for me. You understand? Oh, you for me. So, there is an historical grievance in his heart. Because Amakwe Norio ne era no warioba, if truly is a grandson of Uswanlele, if truly is a grandson of Uswanlele, let me not tell you why Agarie, who went up with the 200,000 on him, he will fight the royal house because of the historical antecedent. And I'm going to tell you. Now, just in case a lot of you people really didn't understand the life and times of Prince Izoduwa. Alright, Izoduwa becoming Obavoramen. After he became Obavoramen, he had, as a young prince, as Omonorowa, as a young prince, as Omonorowa or senior prince. Again, I'm my deke. So, at a very tender age, young age, let me not use the word tender. At a very young age, he impregnated a lady. And that lady gave birth to Prince Agho Obaseki. Alright? Gave birth to Prince Agho Obaseki. So when he now became a more matured man, alright? I'm sorry if I'm not using the right words, but when he now became more matured, I think it's a proper word. When he now became more matured, that is when he now married. And when he married, the woman now gave birth to Uswanlele, Prince Uswanlele. Alright. So, everybody knows that Obavorame had 6 children. No bia yedo, no bia yisi, no bia yisima, any boom, amaye, any boom war. But the ones that he gave birth before the unfortunate episode of 1897, there were 6. 3 male and 3 female. The first child being Crown Prince Agho Obaseki. The second being Uswanlele. For the male. The third for the male was Princess Igie. Then for the female, the first was Princess Eva Hawokun. The second was Princess Omono. While the third was Princess Oimiame. Alright? Alright? Princess Oimiame. That was the third daughter. So they were all 6. 3 male, 3 female. These were the 6 children of Obavorame. Now, again, aya ebodo weminia uni and all of that. Even before the episode of 1897, Uswanlele was already contesting. I'm going to read some chapters for you people. Uswanlele was already contesting because there was a message that Obavorame sent from Calabar telling some of the British district officers that they should ensure that Agho Obaseki is crowned. Because probably before he left Benin, he already knew there was a rivalry between 2 siblings. What Uswanlele was saying was that Agho Obaseki was an illegitimate child. By Benin traditions and custom, you know that I'm an illegitimate child. Do you understand? So, as Uswanlele was already angry that Agho Obaseki, by that virtue, no, don't let him distract you people. Leave him. Concentrate. You people concentrate on history. Concentrate on history. So, I mean legitimate child, though Benin does not have such traditions and custom. I mean legitimate child, though. So, Agho Obaseki was very clear because the age difference between Agho Obaseki. Why we call Larry? Oh, so sorry, a call came through. Yet one more, do not disturb. The calls will not start coming. So I that's when so they are not illegitimate. They are not illegitimate children, according to the history of Edo people. All right. So the descendant of Uswanlele has always had that pain till now. So if he's talking from pain, because a troni Omaseyabo awoji yahin. I use oji yamoba. I sak morioba oji. Omaseyabo. And funny enough, Uswanlele died at a very young age. You people should go and find that. He died very. So, like I was saying, don't get distracted. It's them. Let them bring their evidence. We're going to deal with fact. Am I sworn? Oh, day. Am I sworn? So, the pain that Ekete Masu Uswanlele Obo is where that useless Prince Osuyi might not take by him. Or a dignity now. And throw it. There was an historical rivalry between Uswanlele and Agho Obaseki, and that was the reason why they had a life, and that was why they had that rivalry. But how can you, when I am older than you with almost 10 years, then because I married you automatically, so that's the pain. So when he's talking from pain. All right? But he also made issues that he also allegedly said some historical fact. It is true that Agho Obaseki married 2 princesses. And I will tell you the reason why. It is not even the reason that we used to know. By nature, every first daughter of the Oba of Benin, senior princesses must marry, is compelled to marry the Iyase. All right? That is tradition. But don't forget, I'm going to prove much later that Agho Obaseki is not an Iyase by tradition. I'm going to prove. You understand? Because the law states that the first daughter of the Oba of Benin must marry a traditionally elected Iyase. Agho was never. And who chooses an Iyase? The Oba of Benin. Agho, by the virtue of this live video, Agho was never an Iyase. It was a British Iyase. And I'll prove it. Oba Ozi Iyase. Oba Ozi Ozogi. Oba Ozogi. Oba Ziyase. But I'll prove that it was not the Oba that appointed Agho as Iyase. Everything is in books. So that means Agho is not liable to get the first daughter of an Oba, except there was a reason. And I will also show you people the reason. So it was not because of tradition. That was why Eweka gave his first daughter, Princess Ebose, to Agho. It was frustration. Frustration. Not tradition. Tradition. Agi is a frustrato viere. With the threat that he would be deposed, that the way his father was deposed. In order to pacify the wicked Agho, he gave a Bose to him. Do you understand? I will prove it. So, Agho is not an Iyase by tradition. It's not by tradition. I'm going to prove it. So when they are saying that two princesses married, an auntie and a niece, we're also going to look at that. So I'm going to prove that. Please remind me to talk about much later on that Ebose matter. Let me go to the Mekoko while we are here. Let me just go to the history. They cut the history naked with head salary and politics. They cut the history. They know what tona. You know what tona. Then what history. So now, ladies and gentlemen, it has gone to a time where we are not going to be speaking arbitrarily. We are going to be speaking based on evidences on books. Now, there are two things that I want to talk about. There are two things there are two reasons why I had to bring a lot of books. Now, I already have in my study library, I already have books written by Benin historians, ranging from Professor Eno Mosuzi, called The Benin Kingdom, a century after British invasion. That's a Benin man. To the Benin City Pilgrimage Station by my mentor, Dr. Aishen Ehagosa. That's another Benin man. The History of Benin, Jacob Wade Agarewa. That's another Benin man. Uzama and the Benin Monarchy, written by the current Iyase of Benin, Sam O.U. Igbe. That's another Benin man. But I now said to myself, because these people are very tricky, they will say, what if, because of O.U., Navi Viedowane die? Agho. Okay. Let me look for another man who is not a Benin man, which is Professor Igbafe. Igbafe did the most elaborate history. In short, he wrote 3 books on Agho Obaseki. He wrote 3 books on Agho Obaseki. So now, okay, let me add Igbafe to it. So most of the things I'm going to be reading are excerpts because he did one of the most chronological. And let me tell you, Igbafe never liked till when Dr. Aishen Ehagosa was still alive, when the Institute for Benin Study, when we did a book launch, and late Method was still alive, the Institute of the Benin Studies came up with this book. Look at it. That's Dr. Aishen Ehagosa. Benin Studies under the Scalpel. Essays in honor of Dr. Ehagosa Aishen. Igbafe was there. And when I met with him, I had asked that some of the books that you wrote, you were very critical of the palace. So Igbafe was one historian who never really liked the palace. So there's no way he could have written any book in favor of the palace. In short, if you read some of his works concerning Agho Obaseki, he tried to defend him. But it was too obvious as a matter of fact that he couldn't defend him. You understand that he couldn't defend him. So it's not a matter of these are palacentric. Almost all the historians here were not palacentric. Obviously, you know, Jacob Owade Agarewa was not palacentric. Dr. Aisene Hagosa wrote so many things that had to challenge him. And he said that I am a scientist by nature. Scientists, we will need to put two evidences. There was a time there's a particular part of one of his work in Elegbe that he wrote in favor of the Ogiame. I had to ask him at that he wrote according to what the Ogiames told him, and he also wrote according to what the General Benin told him. So he put both of them aside so that any Benin man can see the truth. From the two stories, from the two sides. You read the two stories, you find out the truth yourself. So it was not a palacentric story. Neither was Omosuzi. Maybe probably Samigbe, who is a chief in the palace, could have been palacentric. That's the only person that is palacentric in all of the discourse. So I wanted to establish that. So now we are going to do the first work we are going to do is on Agho Obaseki. We are going to be reading. There's a book in it. That book is out of print. I have the soft copy. If you want the full book, I'll send it to you. I have the full book. It's out of print. You can't get it anywhere. So luckily, we have some copies at the institute. So I had to make photocopies, but I have the soft copies. So now, this is Igba's first work called, it was a monologue called Agho Obaseki. Now we are going to read what he said about the background from page 1, that's page 3, that's page 2, 3, 4, and 5. So these will be the first 4 pages because we need to look at the background of who Agho Obaseki was. So from there, it will give us more strength for us to look at several other things. All right. So we read. Why down? I'm going to extract quite a lot of things here. In the year 1897, Benin was invaded by the British. The palace of the Oba of Benin was badly damaged, and the Oba himself was forced to flee. Later, the Oba surrendered to the British. He was tried and exiled. The invasion of Benin and the trial and deportation of the Oba ushered in British colonial rule in Benin. The story this book tells is that of one of the most powerful figures in Benin during the colonial period up to 1920. His name was Chief Obaseki, paramount chief of Benin from 1898 to 1914, and then Yasen of Benin from 1914 till his death in 1920. The name of the man known as Chief Obaseki was Agho. His father, Ogbede, at the time of his death, held the Benin title of Ine under the Oba Adolo. The Ine is the head of the Palace Society of Ibiwe and is responsible for looking after the Oba's harem. This society provides and maintains the houses for the Oba's wives. A smaller group within the Ibiwe society under the Oshodi looks after the personal welfare of the Oba's wives, provides them with escorts when they leave the palace and settles any dispute between them. From the nature of these duties, it is obvious that only trustworthy persons were allowed to belong to this society. And the appointment of the Ine was a mark of the trust the Oba had in the person he so appointed. Ogbede's grandfather, Emohwa, was the son of an Onogi of Unsukwa. Agho was thus descended not only from a family that had produced an Enogi, village or town head, but also a family that had been honored by the Oba. Agho was thus born of a titled family. This fact is often forgotten when people speak of Obaseki's later career, because his rise to power depended first upon the Oba's favor and then on the support of the British. People tend to see him as a nobody who rose to the office of chieftaincy. It is proper to stress that I was descended from no family of commoners. In the period before it, became the rule that the eldest son of the Oba of Benin should succeed his father. There were bitter struggles among the Oba's sons as to which of them should become Oba. These struggles often led to severe fighting which disturbed the peace of the kingdom. Even after the rule had been accepted that the eldest son should succeed the father, there was still trouble. Arising from disputes as to who was first son, this was because the Oba had many wives and a number of these wives might have had children at about the same time. It was during this disturbed Benin that our fathers, Ogbede, made his first contact with the Benin Royal family. This was during the reign of Obaseki. There was a civil disturbance in Benin at the time as some of the Oba's brothers were fighting for his throne. The disturbances became so unbearable that Obaseki decided to flee from Benin to Ewohimi. During this journey at a village called Ike, you know I've explained it. The village, now Ogbede Oyo, no Obaseki Kere, is called Ike Nisi. Ike Nisi. At Yewoni. At present day Uhonde. So all of you asking, Yewoni Kere, I heard now that he did not do anything. 8 years spent. He could not even tar one road in his own village. Now he's calling himself a Benin City boy. A Benin, you are not from Benin City, Uhonde Kere, Wakere. So why are we here? Because that is actually the original village. You people should go. I heard that Okpebolo is even trying to tar road now to Ike. That is the original village. Yeah. All right. I even know the history more than your father. Use Junior Dinyiwe. Everywhere Aragon, Ado Iragun. Imo to time my history do. All right. So this one I'm reading from a book. Don't worry. So I'm sure that Igbafe, you are also more knowledgeable than Igbafe. This was during the reign of Obaseki. There was a civil disturbance in Benin. Okay, I think I've read that. The disturbances became so unbearable that Obaseki decided to flee from Benin to Ewohimi. During this journey, at a village called Ike in the Akugbe area near Abudu, the Oba took Ogbede, then only a boy, as a sword bearer, Umuada. After some time, peace returned to Benin. Obaseki was once again able to return to his capital. Once on his throne again, the Oba decided to promote Ogbede by making him what in Benin is known as, I think, let me skip all this. Okay, because it's quite long. By this time, Ogbede had grown into a man with his own family. Ogbede married several wives soon after he was elevated to the rank of Uronisen. He wanted to write Uronisen. By these wives, he had many children, of whom the eldest was Obakpolo, others were Odige, Ozuwa, Oviawi, Ogbomo, Edokpolo, Saigeole, and the subject of our story, Agho himself. It looks as if Agho was one of Ogbedo's last children. Agho's mother, okay, I think it's Enome was carrying Agho. Listen, this is when the Agho story started. Start paying attention. I'm going somewhere. All right. Enome was carrying Agho in her womb when she left for Oha in Iyekovia, where Agho was born. Agho never knew his father, for Ogbedo died before Enome returned from Benin to Benin City. Returned with him to Benin City. Before Ogbede died, however, he rose to a higher rank during the reign of Obadolo. He became the Inen Nibiwe. He was also charged with the responsibility of looking after Idugbowa, who was to become the Oba of Oramen. Idugbowa lived with Ogbede till the latter's death. On his death, Idugbowa decided to go elsewhere. He went to live with one Ogagun. I will explain. Okay, to break it down, is the network not good? To break it down, what they are saying is that Vijay Agho wa home Agho wa, how do I put it? When Agho mother was pregnant with the child called Agho, he left Benin and went to somewhere Viyekovia. So that was where Agho was born. And before the mother took that child back to Benin, his father Ogbede had already died. So Agho never really knew his father. But don't forget, Agho's father was a caretaker as Inenibiwe of Idubowa. But when he now died, Idubowa had to leave. Idubowa left Agho's compound and went to stay with another chief, which was called Chief Ogagun. Some of you might not know Chief Ogagun. I think in one of the stories I talked about that, because later on Chief Ogagun was put to death because there was a conspiracy that Ogagun was conspiring to kill Prince Idubowa. Chief Ogagun wanted to poison Prince Idubowa. Oh, Nina Dove. It's another story for another day. Oh, Nina Dove. Adolo had to, a death penalty was spent on Chief Ogagun, and Chief Ogagun was killed. It's another story in Benin. So, for some of you who do not know Chief Ogagun, Chief Ogagun's house was is at the present day St. Matthew's. It can not be St. Matthew's here. Why Chief Ogagun so that means it was two people that actually took care of Prince Idubowa. Idubowa was taken care by Ine Nibiwe, who was the father of Agho, and Chief Ogagun. Before he left there, on a area, no bira, era no biye, that is Chifero at Ubi. He actually didn't go to a Daken. Prince Idubowa was one of the Obas that didn't go to Uselu, to do the Dakenship. Just in case some of you are not aware, Urubi or Nawoge, one of the few Obas, maybe one or two, or Mayuselu Urubi or Nawoge, because he was with his grandfather around the quarter of his grandfather, Eran Obiye, who is a doctor of Eo. Alright? So now, this is where the Agho story. Alright? This is where our story so this is where the story is very, very important. When Agho was brought to Benin City after the death of his father, he was put under the care of an elder brother, Ozuwa. While with Ozuwa, he joined the family in farming for a living. Agho did not, however, enjoy very good health. So he was not having a very good health. Frequent illness led to him being transferred to the care of another brother, Ogbomo. All of you can, if some of you do not know Ogbomo, Ogbomo is one of the sons of Ogbede. He's the patriarch of the popular Agho Obaseki family. Alright, so the patriarch of the Agho Obaseki family was called Ogbomo, was one of the sons of Ogbede, the elder brother to Agho. So because he was always having health issues, I went to stay with his other brother called Ogbomo. Ogbomo lived in a village of Igwi, Ivioba. So once again, Agho found himself living outside Benin. It was in Ogbomo's household that Agho came of age. By that time, he had become an adept at the trumpet. But Agho was destined to spend his adult life in Benin and not Igwi-Vioba. Igwi-Vioba is close to the present day Usen. Now a young man of just over 25 years. Agho become, listen very well. This is Igbafe's work. Agho became involved with another man's wife in Igwi-Vioba. So Agho, at the age of 25, went to sleep with another man's wife. Agho went to sleep. Agho Obaseki went to sleep with another man's wife. You understand? So this point that I have raised, there is in order to substantiate this point that I have raised, I will go further on. As time progresses, I also bring another thing. When the Benichi accused that if were most of the children no biene, if were avio when he became of age again yeri yasene British yasene. Look at the first. At the age of 25, he was already sleeping with other people's wives, according to Igbafe. All right. Agho became involved with another man's wife in Igwe. In those days, to get involved with another man's wife was a very serious thing. If in case you think I'm lying, I will send you the book. The book is Igbafe's work called Agho Obaseki. I mean, page 3. Page 3 material. So, our lawyer on her, Okbeno keep going down at a very young age, or going down. Agho found himself extremely unpopular with everyone. Life in the village became really impossible for him. So he decided to go back to Benin City and try to settle down all over again. In Benin, Agho got in touch with the future of Vorame. The crown prince was only too glad to take Agho, son of his former guardian Ogbede, under his protection. So the only crime that you will later discover that was the only crime Prince Izoduwa ever committed in this life was loving Agho. You will find that the sacrifices and the things that the sacrifices that Prince Izoduwa made for Agho. So please, some of you who have dictionary, like, I want you to, whether it's Oxford or Webster or whatever, you open your dictionary now, so that you can open the meaning of, I don't know the meaning of betrayer and traitor. All right. So why care? Because I already say so that you people will read it to me what betrayer means, because I don't know. So that we'll not look at even Agho da ovie, even Agho da Voramene, not here and made him who he was, whether it was betrayer. Then, whether even Agho da ovie or Bavorame, whether one was treachery. So we want to look at the definition based on the background. They tell me know who was protecting of the throne or betraying the throne. We have to look at all of that. So why a dictionary? So that what the definition of what it takes to be a traitor or a betrayer. You people will show me that one. Now, he was very happy now to see the son of his guardian. This was the beginning of Agho's relationship with the prince, who was to become Oba of Vorame. This relationship, which began as one of the close friendship, was to end on a note of hostility. The reason for this change is to be found in the story of Agho. Look at it. Look at what Igbafe said. He said, this relationship, which began as one of close friendship, was to end on a note of hostility. Close friendship, but okay, we'll know how it ended. The reason for this change is to be found in the story of Agho's career, which will be related in this book. A few years after Agho was given protection by the crown prince, he began to engage in trade for him. Prince Izoduwa, in about 1888, the prince became Oba of Vorame. Agho had a great advantage over ordinary Benin traders because he was acting for the royal house. He could trade in products like palm oil and cannons, which were often monopolized by the Oba, because Oba owns Oba Obweki, Oba Yankee. So because he had Dweki Oba, it became excessively advantaged that you cannot compete with the Oba in terms of market. So it now became comparatively advantaged, and because of that, it became stupidly wealthy, based on the favor that he has found from the royal house. All right. In return of this and other products, he received European goods like rum, matches, and salt, fine clothes, silks, and other imported goods. The center of this trade was Uwoton, the port of Benin in those days. In this trade, Agho proved himself to be a man gifted with energy and great organizing ability. He worked hard and knew how to handle the men in his charge. It was not surprising, therefore, that in a few years he had established himself as an extremely wealthy trader who made profits for the Oba as well as for himself. The same energy, ability, and devotion to duty which won success for him as a trader were to win him high office after the British took Benin in 1897. Now, look at it. I posted this one yesterday. It was natural that the Oba should take note of the ability, devotion, and success of Agho. Agho won the love and confidence of the Oba, just as his father had won the love and confidence of both Oba Asemede and Oba Adolo. So the crime of the royal house was loving the lineage of Agho. He became the head servant of the Benin Royal house and began to settle minor disputes in the household. He received special favors from the Oba, such as the gift of his first wife. Now, Oba Voramen was the one who married the very first wife. Now go home, Oba Voramen. And the name of that woman was called Etuhun. I'm going to go to the works of Isien. I'm going to read from Isien's work later on. You also discover that it was not just Etuhun that Oba Voramen gave to Agho. He also married another woman called Edugie. Edugie Nyobe Gaius, who also, we're going to talk about that some other time. So Etuhun was the one who gave birth to the first son, Agbedo, the first son of Agho, Nori Obaseki. You see the way I'm calling it, I'm not saying Agho Obaseki because Obaseki is not his son name. It was a title given to him by the Oba of Benin, and that title was created for the purpose for him. And I will tell you why that title was created. Let's move on. He received special favors from the Oba, such as the gift of his first wife, Etuhun. The giving of Etuhun to Agho's wife was only a beginning. It is one of the rights of any Oba of Benin who ascend the throne to fill vacant titles as well as to create new ones and fit these new titles into the various palace societies. The Oba also decided the seniority of the new titles in the various palace societies. I hope you guys understand. Taking advantage of this right, Oba Voramen created the title of Obaseki. Obaseki was originally not a title. Obaseki was originally not their name. Any title no. All right, a title no, just like every other title chief. Do claim The Oba also decided the seniority of the new titles in the various palace society. Taking advantage of this right, Oba Voramen created the title of Obaseki and bestowed it on Agho in 1889. The title was in recognition not only of Agho's success in trade, but also his devotion to the Oba. Now look at the meaning of the title. The meaning of the title is that Oba's favor was much more valuable than mere success in trade. Do you understand what it means? Oba's favor. Since Egi Oba talk by guitar, like some people are suggesting, Edoga talk by. So many are Oba ni. Ye niare Edo Yeva, Edo Seki. So, ladies and gentlemen, from today henceforth, their name now is not Edo Seki. Edo Seki. Okay, because they no longer find favor in the hands of the Oba. They have not found favor in the hands of the Edo. So let them remove Oba. So let them put Edo there. So I get Oba talk when I get Oba Edo talk back, no wahala. So Oba ni already yani. Let them remove it. Because I yani. So Edo Seki is not their new name. So they even betray their own son name. Exactly. So today henceforth, they should not be regarded, that family should not be regarded as Edo Seki. So, when I got Bati Veje, Edo Ze for Abat, Egi Obaze, since Edo, Edo Ze, very well. We that love it, let them leave it for us. The Obaseki would therefore, the meaning of the title is that the Oba's favor was much more valuable than mere success in trade. Now, listen. There's something I want to say now. Listen to what Igbafe want to see. There's a secret. Listen. The Obaseki would therefore be well advised. Look at it. The Obaseki would therefore be well advised to remain loyal to the Oba if he sought to enjoy continued prosperity. I want you people to open your mind. You understand? I want you people to open your mind. I want you people to open your mind. I want you to listen. There is Rema. There's a secret here. Now, they were advised. Did you ask who advised them? Ask Eli for another day. But listen, the Obaseki would therefore be well advised to remain. It was not the royal house that advised them. They went for a divination. So he was well advised. The Obaseki would therefore be well advised to remain loyal to the Oba if he sought to enjoy continued prosperity. That is why that name, they knew the power that name carries. That is why I'm saying Nini till now. That's why I'm saying Nini. There's a secret there. So why Azio Karina Ninita? Now, thereafter, the name Agho virtually disappeared as it became known as Obaseki. It's surreptitiously, because you know there's a power that surrounds the success. The secret of the success of the family is on that name. The secret of the success of that family is on that name. That's why they will never change it. Most of them don't even know. Okay. They are saying why. So, let me proceed. Having created the title of Obaseki, the Oba put the title into the Wegwa society. Listen, look at the favor, so much favor that Oba, the royal, has did for these traitors. Having created the title of Obaseki, the Oba put the title into the Wegwa society. The Wegwa title holders were responsible for the domestic work of the royal household, and as such were very close to the Oba's person. Obaseki not only became an Iwegwa title holder, he was also made the fourth most senior title holder in the palace society. The former title holder, Omanote number 4 of Iwegwa, because of the love of Orame had for these traitors, Ona stepped Chief Ehanire down. You know, Oba creates a title and can also determine the position. We determine where the title will belong to, and we also determine where the position. So in the case, the Obaseki title would have been probably in the 15th position or in the 16th position. But the position, Neobamune, was 4th. Originally, that position is occupied by a title called the Ehanire title. Oba needed to step Ehanire down so that he can elevate this guy in question who later betrayed him and his household. He elevated him because of the love he had for him and gave him 4th position. Now look at what now happened. The former title holder, Ehanire, was thus pushed further down. Ehanire resented his demotion. And the Oba had to pay him compensation. So that because of the love he had. The love Akenzwa the first also had for this man, the Ezomo. What's the guy? Yeah. Also the love. No way elevated Ezomo over Chifeo, Ejoeho. So it was the same love. So Ehanire resented his demotion, and the Oba had to pay him compensation before he would accept the situation. Obaseki had already started to make enemies for himself through the favors he enjoyed from the Oba. Because he had enjoyed so much favor. The royal house has blessed him too much. As Obaseki thus became an important figure at court, it was necessary that his own household should show evidence of his importance. Now, not that Omo has promoted him. Listen, you see how the royal house showed these people love. All the royal house have done was to show these people. Not that Omo has not protected him. He's not a big man. But in the old days, you cannot be a big man. You cannot be a big man. Because on Vienna, not get a big. Look at what Obavorame did again for Agho. As Obaseki thus became an important figure at court, it was necessary that his own household should show evidence of his importance. In those days, a man's position in society was often measured in terms of the size of his family, the number of his slaves, and the extent of his farm settlement. To help Obaseki establish his position, The Oba made him a gift of 100 slaves, captives of war. The more the Oba showered gifts on Obaseki, the closer the friendship and love between the two became. Wadameyo, are you guys listening? Then, page 5. It is one of the ironies of the history of Benin that this same, look at what Ikpafe said. Ezomo Henwa, thank you. Look at what Ikpafe said. After all these things that Ovorame has done, look at what Ikpafe now said. He said, it is one of the ironies of the history of Benin that this same Obaseki was so sick to usurp the powers of the Oba in the period from about 1900 to 1920 before he died. You know, he died in 1920. Look at what Ikpafe said. Haven't done all these things. Prince Dugbowa onado rescue onado mwenki onado adwekine. He made him a rich man. He created a title for him, the title of Obaseki. Then elevated this and put him at Iwegwa and elevated the title to number 4. And okay, title when you are not a big man, by virtue of being a big man, we are 100 of Vienna, after all of that. Look at what Ikpafe said. It is one of the ironies of the history of Benin. Ironies. That it is one of the ironies of the history of Benin that this same Obaseki was to seek to usurp. Godwin Obaseki said that without our Obaseki, there would not have been Benin monarchy. But look at what Ikpafe said. Ikpafe said, Professor Ikpafe, a reputable historian, look at what he said. He said, it is one of the ironies of the history of Benin that this same Obaseki was to seek to usurp, not to strengthen, not to preserve, but to usurp the powers of the Oba in the period from about 1900 to 1920. That is what Ikpafe said. We are coming back to Ikpafe. Let's go to Tona. A small paper will blow it for. Where's my small paper? Where's my small paper? Oh, can you man have a page? Okay. And small paper we. Okay. Let's go to Benin City Procurement Center. Let's look at what Dr. Aisha Hagosa had to say on this matter. We have heard from Ikpafe. We are coming back to Ikpafe. But let's go to Benin City Procurement Center. Let's also listen to them a little bit. Why go on Benin Pilgrimage, page 52 to 53. Some of you have the book. You can follow me and read. Let's look at what happened on page 52 and 53. Okay, I'm just going to read few places out. Okay. On page 52 of the Benin Pilgrimage written by Dr. Aisha Hagosa, go to paragraph 1, 2, 3. Paragraph 3. Look at what Dr. Aisha Hagosa said. Based on Abesini Bafeta, the Evinovora Meuna or Maifo, ne Ibafeheni Enyata, or Mayefo. Look at what Dr. Aisha Hagosa also said. Uswense ne the royal house ne Agho. The house where he stayed is still standing and inhabited, though for the most part not derelict. It is number 10 Ekpenede Street. It once belonged to a citizen who died childless during the early years of the reign of Oba Ovorame. The Oba inherited the property and then gave it to one of his favorite servants, Agho. Look at it. The first house that Agho ever had in Benin, Oba Yane. Only Wiani, I tell Wiani. The Mwati I mean, Wiani, Oria. It's not their own. Since you have a Guayo. So that their property are number 10 at Benedict. So what Aisha Hagosa is saying is the first house I will ever had. The same of Vorama over Yane. The first house he ever had. The Oba inherited the property and then gave it to one of his favorite servants, Agho, who was his agent in the waterside trade with the Shekiris and the Europeans. On occasion, let me leave there. Now, I'm going back to page 53 now. You come back to paragraph, the second paragraph. He had his first son, Agbedo. You know, in the works of Igbafe said the first wife of Agho was betrothed to him by Obavorame. Now, Agho Obaseki said that it was not just only one wife that Ovorame gave to Agho. He actually added another wife, and that the name was, he had his first son Agbedo by his first wife Etuhun, betrothed to him by Ovorame. And later another son, Gaius Ikwobase Yeme, that's the full name, Ikwobase Yeme, by another wife Edugi, also given to him by the Oba. This son later became an Iyase of Benin, like his father in his time. So, we have established that even the house, the first house Agho ever had in Benin, Oba Yane, alright, Oba Yane. So, his two wives, Nobie Ikwobase Edugi, Etuhun, Oba Yane. We are listening. Essay no, so that let them show one essay near the royal house. Let them bring one favor from history, from historical book near the royal house, according to Godwin. So let's go to page 68 to 69. Let's still on Benin City Pilgrimage Center. Garewa, a nice one. No, let's leave that part. That was not too important. Let's go to page 84 to 86. Let's go to page 84 to 86. This is the most important part. All right, this is the most important part. Very important. So let's go. Let's read together. Page 84 to 86 by Benin City Pilgrimage Center. All right. Let's find that. The principle has always once been seriously challenged in Benin since the last 300 years. That's the principle of primogeniture, father to first son. That's what he was saying, because, you know, I'm not reading from the beginning, so I don't have all the time. So those who have the book can go and read it, because Dr. Aishen was making reference to what traveled during the time of Obaya Wakbe. So that's why he's starting. The principle has always once been seriously challenged in Benin since the last 300 years. This happened during the colonial era. The effort, which was quite determined, was a clear departure from and an attempted repudiation of Ewakbe enactment. It was hashed and promoted by the British colonial resident of Benin Province, Mr. James Watt. Now, please, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, those names called James Watt, Memia Fone, James Watt, we need to remove James Watt, where the people not Zagedo using Agho Obaseki. Now, James Watt ought not to exist in Benin Kingdom anymore. We have to do a protest. The likes of Cooks Road, Naitia Cook Road, James Watt, Plymouth. These were the people, most especially James Watt. These were the people that brought the kingdom to their knees, and they still have a street named after them in the heart of Benin City. We have to change that. We have to change that. We have to change that, old woman. Mr. James Watt, when he unsuccessfully pushed and at first reticent Chiefs Obaseki candidacy forward for the Benin throne at the demands of Obavorame in Eze and Calabar early in 1914. The reasoning was that the colonial resident of the sister province of Warri had his chief Doho Numan. Alright? Doho Numan. The fulcrum on which the native administration of Warri province turned at the time, Jeswant in turn desired to retain his own Doronuma of Benin province in the person of Chief Agho, the Obaseki of Benin, in the administration of the native affairs of Benin province. It is true that Chief Doho Numa, the Shekiri chief, who was so important in the running of the native aspect of the administration of Warri province during the first 3 decades of colonialism in Nigeria, and who died in 1932, played some role in the resolution of the succession struggle for the Benin throne in 1914 between the Crown Prince Agho Obaseki and Chief Agho Obaseki, but his role was peripheral and dispensable because a firm decision on the matter had already been taken before Doho arrived on the scene. What Dr. Aisha Hagosa is saying that it was Doho Roma that was invited to also be to mediate between the crisis that was happening. But however, the matter had already been resolved. That matter had already, even before Doho came. Now, not knowing that, Agho had traveled to see Dore Numa in Warri district to bribe him. Alright, ya bribe Dore Numa no day, because he heard, because he was a friend of the British. He had heard that one of the person who is going to mediate on this matter will be Doho Numa. So now ya bribe on, I'm going to read it now, you're going to see. Ona ya bribe on, ona ya arigo ne, no ni gwa in favor of him, na mi oba. But before ni kere, his fate had already been decided. The meeting at which his fate was decided is stated in Igba First Work. So we're going to go back to Igba First Work and look at where that fate was determined before Doho Numa come. But let's continue. All right. Chief Doho Numa arrived in Benin probably during the first half of April 1914 through Saple, the Benin-Saple Road, which construction had been embarked upon by the new Lagos government in place of the more ambitious, I don't want to run, I don't want to run through any tangle. Though entered, no, those are too long. Okay. The Shekiri chief had a meeting with all the Benin chiefs. The venue was Chief Obaseki's palatial residence, the Agho Obaseki by the Uzebu Moat, crossing at the western end of Urogotodin High Street. The two contestants for the throne. Look at it, oh. The two contestants. And it was see me here. The throne. The two contestants. Okay. The two contestants for the throne, Crown Prince Agho Obaseki and the Obaseki, the host of the meeting, were in attendance. So Ido Asimi. Don't also forget, I will also read that a letter that Crown Prince Agho Obaseki wrote to King George. King George, no lao, no bunyeri. That Obaseki and me and throne. We are all going to read that from Igba First Work. Yes, he wrote. Agho Obaseki had to write to King George in England, had to write to Oni of Ife, had to write to I think Emir of Kanu, had to write to prominent traditional rulers in Adogunye in Agho. We are going to read that from Igba First Work. All right, but let me proceed. You may ask okay, the host of the meeting were in attendance. The findings of the commission of inquiry into the matter in dispute, probably the one conducted by Colonel A.C. Morehouse at the instance of Governor General Lugard, were already on hand. Doe had a copy of the report, probably handed to him by the colonial officers in Benin. He asked a clerk who was in attendance at the meeting to read out the conclusion of the report. The findings confirmed that the Obaship of Benin was hereditary, passing from father to eldest son. Rhetorically, Doe asked the assembled Benin chiefs whether they were in agreement with the commission's findings. The chiefs confirmed that the conclusion represented indeed the true position of things. After this affirmation from the chiefs, Doe repetitiously pronounced in favor of Agho Obaseki, taking care to be seen to be working in tandem with the government on the matter. Doe then informed the assembled chiefs, listen, Doe then informed the assembled chiefs that Chief Obaseki had brought him 200 pounds shillings. Sterling. 200 pounds sterling. 200 pounds sterling. Listen, Doe, the security chief, then informed the assembled chiefs that Chief Obaseki had brought him 200 pounds sterling. He would He would keep the money, he said. After all, he was from the Benin Royal family, being a descendant of Izoduwa Imasuen first son. He was therefore deserving of a gift from Chief Obaseki, which gift should probably be regarded as a moha, a sustenance item for the Benin royalty. I will explain that one. It was said that when he arrived home, the Shekiris conferred on Chief Doho Numa a praise name for his success on his Benin trip. As serious and as menacing as this Obaseki episode was, the attempt was not able to upstage the Ewakbe enactment made 200 years earlier. The enactment held that such was his resilience and the depth of his root in the culture of the people. Obavaraman's acknowledged Ederson succeeded him to the throne of his father. Now, Orime a guy ni te ya bribe when guy ni hania 200 pounds sterling. Not a gwev in favor of him here, making Arioba. Alright. Ori failing the Ichekiri chief also now came out and said that a guy not said only 200 pounds sterling. He only again that he only order nevaza, he only beyaza. That money or beyaza. That being that Oviedo you him by ancestry. So again bribing money. Obaseki do yi mo aniye as a prince or Benin in his own right. Do you understand? That he won't beyaza. So now, someone who paid 200 pounds sterling for a case to be in favor of him, his great-grandson, 120 years later or so, came out and is telling the Benin people that without his own great-grandfather, they would not have been Oba today. The man who wanted to destroy the kingdom, his great-grandson, 120 years or so later, is coming to tell the Benin people, of which he wanted to destroy, that without his own great-grandfather, that kingdom wouldn't have survived. It is an irony. It is an irony. We are not done. Let's go to Igbafe. Let's go to Igbafe. Gary Igbafe. Am I done? Let's go back to Igbafe. Let's start from page 23, 24, 23 Oroduhun, 24 Ariyeke, 25 Yaro. Then there's a page 20. There's a page 18 to page 20. Okay. Page 19 is okay. On that Igbafe's work, on page 18, this is what was written. The way the opposition, you can go and get it, page 18. The way the opposition went to work was to begin a secret movement. Now, let me explain, because all of these things are going to take time if I keep reading it verbatim. Now, in 1906, something happened. Agho Obaseki started planning a coup against, Agho Obaseki as a prince started planning a coup against the British. They wanted to find a way to take back the throne. They wanted to find a way to fight for what he was looking for, a way to find it. So he started lobbying people across. He started a movement. So he was able to bring a lot of chiefs into it. They convinced them. They all keyed into it. And I mobilized. Mobilized so that to take back our throne. So there was actually, the Benins at that time actually wanted to fight for the throne. So they were mobilizing, headed by Agho Obaseki. They were mobilizing. They were was mobilizing and mobilizing and mobilizing and mobilizing and mobilizing. Then I made a mistake. This event happened in 1906. Then I made a mistake. What was the mistake? Then I went to tell Godwin Obaseki. Godwin Obaseki. They now went to tell Agho Obaseki. When they told him, Agho now sat down and said that if Oba Ovorame returns, Akpa nebomu yegbe, because he was not the most respected chief. He was not more of like a king. He was going to lose it. Do you understand? The Beninese have mobilized. They have strategized. And mobilized even I had a big takeover back the kingdom. I know you people have never heard this story. It happened in 1906. They have fully mobilized. When I had taken back the kingdom here. But what happened? Then I invited Obaseki that, do they by ma? Ovorame is your best friend. Ovorame in Calabar. Let's find a way to take back kingdom and bring back a royal father from Calabar so that he can take back his throne. They thought they were talking to a confidant, a friend of Oba Ovorame. What now happened? You people listen. Page 20. And so Obaseki refused to join. Having refused to join, he and three other chiefs, three other chiefs, Olele Duzani, Obanyangbon, Iyamu, and Ayobahan, informed. Listen, if this is not a betrayer, I have said several betrayers. This is another betrayer. The Beninese are now strategized. We have gathered how to go and bring our royal father back so that he can come and sit on the throne. So I'm not doing inform Obaseki, but when Obaseki go home, he weighed it that all the favor, all the largesse is now enjoying for a white man. He had to lose once Ovorame who has. I've told you all the things that Ovorame did for this guy. Be the judge of this matter. Then I informed him. After they informed him, he went to bring three other chiefs. They now went. Look at what Ibafe wrote. He said, having refused to join, he and three other chiefs, Obanyangbon, Iyamu, and Ayoba, informed the district commissioner about the movement. The British reacted quickly. Troops were poured into Benin in September 1906, and all the villages concerned once more submitted. Tribute which had not been paid, because you might have paid tribute to Gebo, because a tribute in here mobilized. Then I had a big takeover. The tribute which had not been paid was not paid, and what looked like a political rebellion was crushed. This act, is it sustaining of the throne or betraying the throne? I didn't say it. It's page 20 of Ibafe's work on Agho Obaseki, called Agho Obaseki. On my phone, who are what phone here? I that's one here. It's 12 o'clock. I so boy. What my me? Who are what for them? What are you for? You listen. Or seven. He said we should fact check him. How many betrayers have I brought out? Is it not up to 3 already? 23. Oh, my laptop battery, and I need this laptop. I need this laptop. There are some facts. No real laptop in that. Nah, viola there. Oh, laptop do not mess me up. Then he plug it. It do anyone. Yeah. Huh? Okay. This page 23. Okay, this page 23, 24, then 25. Okay, 23, 24, 25. Okay, let's also look at some things here. Okay, you know, when I was reading from Dr. Aisha Ekhagosa's book, you know, I thought about the Honuma. That before the Honuma had come, one I bribed with 200 pounds sterling. You people remember what I've just said. When the Honuma has gotten to be, that's when the Honuma realized that the case Niate to judge Agwezonine. Remember I talked about it. In have Ezoni na Guini in favor of Agho Obaseki. Igbafe talked about it. Now this is what I want to read, and I want you to pay attention to me. Naya Gwezoni here. Naya Gwezoni here. James Watt. This is page 23. So I cannot read everything. James Watt did not immediately take a decision. He summoned Agho Obaseki, Chief Eson, Chief Ezomo, Chief Eo, and Obaseki. So the meeting that brought the comments back, here I say, or do a meeting, Agho Obaseki, Chief Eo, Chief Ezomo, and Chief Eson. They were 5. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to give you another breaking news. It was not only Agho or betray Benin people. Ezomo we deba. Oh, God damn it. Ezomo we deba. Wadayo Ezomo deba. They should go and contest with book. They should leave Izoduwa. I don't do propaganda, I do fact. All right? Now, when you are also recommending and clapping for people who stood for the transition, when you call Ero, Chief Ero, also be calling Chief Eson. Please, Eson should be added to the hero of this land. Eson of that time stood with his king. You'll find that now. James Watt did not immediately take a decision. He summoned Agho Obaseki, Eson, Ezomo, Eho, and together with Obaseki to yet another interview to discuss the situation. Surprisingly, this time Obaseki answered in response to the question of who should be Oba, because he was asked who's supposed to be the Oba, and he was prepared to do anything the commissioner directed. So in anything Nebotama, he was ready to do it, as far as giving the power, is giving the throne. He was backed by Ezomo. So Ezomo supported Agho Obaseki. Ezomo supported him. So he was backed by Ezomo, who said that even, look at how worse. He thought Ezomo was more terrible than Agho Obaseki. Look at what Dario. Ezomo of that time. When Ezomo of that time, Omawe Yokuo, you know, I've always complained about that Ezomo. Okay, when Ezomo ni Mawe Yokuo. Now look at what this Ezomo said. Another verse is Agho. Look at what he said. He was backed by Ezomo, who said that even if the commissioner decided that a woman should become the Oba, he would be ready to accept such an Oba. What the Ezomo? Ezomo of that time said, James Watt. Na ya mu na Agho Obaseki. Amu no hwo. Ye koyo. Unu Ezomo redo. Unu Ezomo redo. Even in Ayamu na Agho Obaseki, gwa gamu no hwo pa na Ayamu na Agho Obaseki. Yeri anything e boriri kai, yeri obobai. You understand? He was backed by Ezomo, who said that even if the commissioner decided that the woman should become the Oba, he would be ready to accept such an Oba. Chifero and Eson, however, stuck hard for tradition. Only the late Oba's eldest son, he should be, only the late Oba's eldest son, he told the commissioner, could become the Oba. Eson and Eru were standing. Eson and Eru were standing. They stood their ground of Yoruba Nodion or Yoruba. That is what is missing in a lot of Benin elders. Benin elders. I mean automatic. Mene zomo we ahin, when I go we ahin, they get not pay. Keria wa imi we do ni boom. O wan get go Godwin go. Ya akpo body. When ya we zomo we akpo bo, we akpo bo le lago. Look at. After Obaseki's clear stand at the private interview earlier on, his wavering stand at this public interview is evidence that he was already responding to the temptations of acquiring the supreme office in Benin. So it was no longer a news. It was no longer, it was a public glare that he wanted the throne for himself. It was no longer him now not do a baby. He wanted the throne. He wanted the throne for himself. He was probably secretly advised by other chiefs who were relying on him. Should he become Oba to honor them for nearly 20 years, he had been accustomed to giving orders. So other chiefs now, any na we abo de na we ekwe wo almost orioba na, because ogasu wo bo always see my bo. You see greedy Benin chiefs, e dey aye dey greedy. En na hin to ya e no ba magin ya we corrupt set of chiefs. E dey aye where Agho Obaseki was fighting for his right. Let me proceed. Page 24. Most perhaps to think that he would want to stop giving orders and begin to take orders. His pain was that he that was already, the Obaseki's pain was that he was already giving orders during the British colonial rule. He was already giving orders. So if Agho Obaseki now becomes the Oba, he will not be taking orders from the small boy. I would not take order from him. He's supposed to be taking order from me. Why me gonna I take me get go so do ya go don't worry have no ria. Dem otire e be otire. Begin to take orders from Oga, who was the rightful candidate for the throne. Power was beginning. This is what Igbafe acknowledged. Power was beginning to corrupt Obaseki and to tempt him to want to break Benin tradition. Look at what Igbafe wrote. He said power was beginning to corrupt Obaseki and to tempt him to want to break Benin traditions. James Swart, still anxious to do what he could do for his loyal servant, refused even at this stage to reach a decision, even when it was clear that Agho Obaseki already James Swart James Swart name needs to leave Benin land. James Swart, still anxious to do what he could do for his loyal servant, refused even at this stage to reach a decision. He continued to investigate. He asked the Oni of Ife and other rulers their views about the succession practice in Benin. Meanwhile, Lugard himself ordered an investigation into the matter. At the end of all of these investigations, even James Swart was forced to recommend that Agho Obaseki should succeed his father as Oba. Although tradition thus triumphed over personal ambition, Agho Obaseki's victory was far from easy. He himself realized that Obaseki was seeking to take throne from him. Listen, I said something like this. Now, he said, although tradition thus triumphed over personal ambition, Agho Obaseki's victory was far from easy. He himself realized that Obaseki was seeking to take the throne from him. He wrote petition. Agho Obaseki na yagbe petition. Ona yagbe petition. Ya lo banigbe. Ya Agho lo egbe. He wrote petition to King John V, praying that monarch to help him gain his father's throne He appealed to Ooni of Ife and other traditional rulers in Nigeria so that they can use their influence to help him. In a sense, look at Igbafe now. What Igbafe wrote. He said, in a sense, it was pathetic to see a prince of Benin reduced. In a sense, it was pathetic. Listen. In a sense, it was pathetic to see a prince of Benin reduced to begging for the throne that was his by right. Do you understand? Let me read again. He said, in a sense, it was pathetic to see a prince of Benin reduced to begging for the throne that was his by right. That situation was evidence of the powerful position which Obaseki had built for himself. Now, why if you me ate kompa me o me company ate ma wa ate ni get tiva ya ate e one bo avie we ze vie where me oh yeah na go re na Agho Obaseki the people that are saying that they didn't betray the throne yeah tell ya coming they said they didn't betray that they protected the throne. Okay, listen. On 20th April 1914, this was the point I was trying to give. Why we should never count Agho as an Iyase. Why we should never count Agho as an Iyase. This is the point. This is the point that I want to read. On 20th April 1914, Agho Obaseki was formally installed as a Daiken or Oba elect. On the same date, Chief Agho Obaseki was given the next highest title in the Benin political system, that of Iyase of Benin. The British district officer in bestowing the title on Obaseki said that he was giving Obaseki the title owing to the good work he had done for the government during the past 18 years. The British, having stuck to tradition in declaring Agho Obaseki Oba elect, broke tradition by giving the title Iyase or chief advisor to Obaseki instead of allowing Agho Obaseki when he became Oba to give the title to whom he thought fit. Now, listen. Ede na install Agho Obaseki as a Daiken was the same day the British man Iyase na wo. Listen. The same day, the same 22nd of July, now I'm talking about 20th of April. April, May, June, July. That's 3 months before. Okay, do Rioba. And then I'm my Daiken. And there a British even my Agho Iyase. Eder have my Iyase. So how is Agho na Iyase? How is Agho na Iyase? You people should tell me. How is Agho na Iyase? Because the day na moba Oba to be then na my Daiken. Ederio Amaro. Amu Iyase na Agho. The British people. The British people. The British people. So why is they still referring to Agho as an Iyase? Izoduwa this day on forward refused by historical record to recognize Agho as an Iyase. Because Obama is Iyase. We know the England. We know where first and the last Iyase. The UK would do. Do you understand? So how is it not Iyase? So if he's not an Iyase, how is he qualified to marry two princesses? He did. You have a turn when now you are no kai. A princess Oyinami and princess a boss. Yata. Okay, princess a boss and oro. Oh, yati wavia. Why worry? I'm coming. Now, on 22nd of July 1914, again, Agho Obaseki was at last installed as Obaiweka II. Okay, thank you. On 22nd July 1914, Agho Obaseki was at last installed as Obaiweka II. Some sources in Benin say that Obaseki, who had already become Iyase, did not attend the installation ceremony. So Mayo, and then I install Obaiweka or Mayo. Omayo. Okay. Omaifo. Wa de emotional. Me ati kompa ma wa beni wa are wa ni ati e. You're so emotional. I even wrote it. If you see I used Barrow to write something on this page, I don't know whether you guys can see it. I actually told myself that I was not going to read it, but I will read it. I will read it. I have my reasons. The people need to know. The people need to know. I will read it. I actually wrote it on the head of the paper. I said, don't read it. But I'll read it. I'm sorry, I will read it. I have to read it. That family, that many agbewo yo, agbeyo. But I will read it. The answer of aside this. Do you want me to tell you how Yana Moge you want work out Baha? Number one lie that this Agho Obaseki lied on top of his head was that he killed one of his wife. That he was doing human sacrifice. One lies upon lies upon lies upon lies on top of his head. That at a point in time, at a point in time, Oba was forced to be attending St. Matthew's. Because all amoge young were oyawe human sacrifice. Whereas they lied on top of his head that one of his wives, he used her for human sacrifice. Only for them to not discover that the one of the Oloi had eloped, ran away from the palace and married and went to marry one man, one Urobo man in present-day Delta State. All because of he was fighting for his right. Izoduwa, man. Now, when I was reading when he was growing up, there was a part that the Europeans had actually believed. Okay, let me read this part. Let me page 31. It was too much to expect that all this power would not go to Obaseki's head. As a result, Obaseki grew arrogant and very dictatorial. There was one occasion when Obaseki even questioned. Listen, there was one occasion when Obaseki even questioned the Oba's right to give judgment in a case in Siloko without consulting him. Even as the city Oba, Agho questioned Ezon Agwe Siluko because he was not the head of Benin City district. The Siloko district in Matekan, but Ezon Obabe Agwe Siloko, a district of Benin City. Ezon Obabe Agwe Siloko. I will now be with that. I will wear Mado consulting where Agwezoni. There was one occasion when Obaseki even questioned the Oba's right to give judgment in a case in Siloko without consulting him. Yet Siloko was not in the Benin district, of which Obaseki was head. Even the British were forced. Even the British were forced to admit, at least on one occasion, that Obaseki had grown certainly most dictatorial and arrogant in his behavior. Then let me read something. You know, when I was reading that, when he was growing up, that was when he was young. Now he's now an old man. Look at an accusation. The chiefs now petitioned him. All right, look at the sort of petition that was written against him. Page 31, let me read. In 1917, that was 3 years before he died, Obaseki decided to become a Christian. All right, we cannot say whether Obaseki was genuinely converted, or whether he was just playing politics. Anyway, until his death, he attended St. Matthew's CMS Church in Benin. Obaseki becoming a Christian raised important issues for the Oba. It meant, for example, that he could not participate in the palace rituals, which were regarded as non-Christian. It was a matter of grave importance for the Yase to not be absent from important palace rituals. Did Obaseki become a Christian just to embarrass the Oba? That's the question in Bafe. Because on Gesona do wegwa without the Yase I do gieni. So you're not bariting a dagme no sa. So that nega do geni, amane do geni, it has an implication against the Benin people. We cannot say, however, in 1918 the Oba tried to create a crisis. He refused to perform the opening ceremonies of the New Yam Festival. All right, because the Oba refused to do this, the ordinary people could not perform their own ceremonies. This meant that the yams could not be harvested. This began to create hardship. So now, in response to Unyime and Obaseki, Obana also said that during the Gwenyewe, but it now had, and there was now, yeah, tired. Emina do alog if do. All right. Emina do log if do. Emi log if do. No, you people started it. Let me not get it. Emina do log if do. All right. Emi log if do. Then there was not an issue. Onami that particular festival in Obanami where the British now forced him that he must do that particular festival. Then the British, they now forced him. Look at what happened. Let me read it. The British officers refused to accept. Oba was trying to explain to them why he didn't do it. The British officers refused to accept the Oba's explanation and not only forced the Oba to carry out the ceremonies. I want you people to listen. Yeah, it's very sad. The British officers refused to accept the Oba's explanation and not only forced the Oba to carry out the ceremonies, but also made him publicly apologize to Obaseki. Publicly carry out the ceremony, but also made him publicly apologize to Obaseki. This was perhaps Obaseki's greatest triumph, the Oba Benin apologizing to his Iyase. This would never have happened but for the British. The Oba had no choice. Listen again. The Oba had no choice. Not only did he apologize, he even went as far as demonstrating his reconciliation with powerful Iyase by giving his daughter, Princess Ebose, in marriage to Obaseki. Do you understand? When they tell you why Obaseki, why the royals gave one of their daughters to Agho, this is the reason. This is the reason. This is the reason. Look at it. He said, not only did he apologize, he even went as far as demonstrating his reconciliation with the powerful Iyase by giving his daughter, Princess Ebose, in marriage to Obaseki. That was in 1918, 2 years before he died. Giving, or Bayeweka giving his own daughter, his own first daughter, to Agho Obaseki was it as a result of love? It was as a result of tragedy. It was as a result of love. See it for yourself. See it for yourself. Have you seen it? So will they not come and tell you? Will they come out and tell you that it was out of love? That the palace is liking you. And honor you are not doing. That's what I've said. It was not out of tradition. By level of tradition, Agho is not an Iyase. I proved it. Haven't I proved it? You have embarrassed the throne. Then one guy who studied classics in University of Ibadan is not telling that it was Agho. That is the reason why the throne was protected. Then you think Izoduwa will keep quiet and not challenge him that these were the sins of Agho. Let me conclude Igbafe's work with this. Let me just read this place for Igbafe. Most of the petition was, however, directed against Obaseki. Some of the chiefs were angry, so they petitioned the white people because when they have now saw all the things that he has not done, by publicly ridiculing their Oba, and by also forcing the hands of the Oba to give his first daughter to him and all of that, they were not very angry. So they not petitioned. Most of the petition was, however, directed against Obaseki, the Iyase. The chiefs complained against a system which the Iyase virtually ran the native administration alone, to the exclusion of many other chiefs who deserved to take part in the running of the affairs of the kingdom. They brought particularly charges against Obaseki. Obaseki then, they claimed, levied private tribute. They said he said levied private tribute from towns and villages in his district. All right? So he was levying communities to be paying money monthly. He forced these villages and towns to provide free labor. He forced these villages and towns to provide free labor to build his houses and to farm for him. He used his personal servant as government agent and sent them out to the villages to collect tribute of forced labor. As president of the native court, he abused his office. In particular, the chiefs claimed he was in the habit. I want you guys to listen to this part. When Kagwankai from the beginning, when Igbafe said, well, at age 25, look at this is now an old Agho, but this was the allegation that the chiefs in Benin land leveled against him. Leveled against him. Look at what they said. He said they gave the names. Okay, he said in particular the chiefs claimed he was in the habit of granting divorce to women. He was in the habit of granting divorce. He was in the habit. He was in the habit of granting divorce to women and then proceeding to marry those women. So, here what divorced women, or what goes over, so the when I was here and all the you wa. These women, the chief did not just make vague charges. They gave the names of wives of Obaseki who had earlier been divorced in his court. When they talked about free labor and so on, they mentioned the villages concerned so he was also harvesting other people's wives. Outside knockout at the age 25. As an old man, harvesting other people's wives. That rounds up the conclusion of Igba first works. Let me quickly extract something from Iyase's work to round up all of this. Page 199 to 200. Okay, 199 to 200. Look at a particular part I want to read. After the departure of Ovorame to join his ancestor, Agho set his eyes. This is Iyase's book. All right. So, after the departure of Ovorame to join his ancestors, Agho set his eyes on the royal kingship title, hoping that with the support of the white administrators, he would be crowned Oba or with some other choice title. His wife, Oimiame, who had by marriage become the last honor Oba Ovorame bestowed on his age-old friend, Obaseki grieved greatly at her husband's attempt to rob her brother of his birthright and use the backing of the white ruler. So, while Ovorame was still in Calabar, he felt that his best friend was still protecting the interests of the throne. So in 1912, which was Princess Oimiame, you see, Idubowa was deceived, or Ovorame was deceived by Agho, even till the day he died. So in 1912, he asked that Princess Oimiame should be married to his best bosom friend. It was not that Prince Oimiame now that was now having married Agho Obaseki was not crying. Look at what Iyase wrote. His wife Oimiame, who had by marriage become the last honor Ovorame bestowed on his age-old friend Obaseki, grieved greatly at her husband's attempt to rob her brother of his birthright. Oimiame na so now why, which is Agoba no lao Otien or Rioba or Baso Egbe Ea Yena Wien. Oimiame grieved. Obaseki caused problem when he lied. Benin Royal Museum, Mowa, I've not been talking about it. But when he crossed the line of lying, coming to social media and lying against the history of this land, like I said, I will come out with facts and evidence. The books are all there. Let them provide their own books. We asked all this why. But the day Obaseki came out and said that his own traitor great-grandfather was trying. Do you want a Dobe Awe Gaius? That is his own grandfather. Oh God.